Hello and welcome into BTN's Take 10 podcast. This is Alex Roux of BTN.com, and this is a jam-packed episode of the Take 10 podcast. We brought in a couple great guests, and you'll especially like the lineup we've got if your name is Kevin, because we've dubbed this podcast the All Kevin Podcast. Just happened to bring in a couple of super relevant and timely guests who are both also named Kevin, and we centered the guests kind of around the game of the week here at BTN, the Purdue-Ohio State basketball game Wednesday night. Huge top 15 matchup that Ohio State won 64-63 in thrilling fashion on a K-Bates-Diop tip-in. And our guests surrounding that game are Tampa Bay Rays center fielder Kevin Kiermaier. And you might be wondering why am I having a Major League Baseball player talk Big Ten hoops, but Kevin is actually a well-documented Purdue Boilermaker super fan. So when I asked Mr. Kiermaier to come on, it was before the game. We set it up, and I figured Purdue had a pretty good shot to win. So I figured I'd be having him on, and he'd be in good spirits and giving us thoughts after a Purdue win, and we'd kind of get into his Purdue fandom. As you know, Ohio State, as I mentioned, won the game, spoiled the party in West Lafayette, moved into first place in the Big Ten. So Kevin Kiermaier was a great sport and still agreed to come on literally like 30 minutes after the game ended and gave some really candid, good thoughts about Purdue basketball and his fandom. Talked a little bit of Major League Baseball as well. So it was a great discussion with the two-time Gold Glover. And listening back to that, I noticed there was a little bit of an audio issue, just with a little bit of it sounds like a scratching on the mic. I don't know what that is, but I'm going to look into it and try and get that resolved. So if you can bear with me on that, the interview is still really productive and fun with Kevin Kiermaier. So definitely give that a listen. After Kevin Kiermaier, we have another prominent Kevin, and that's Kevin Kugler, the talented play-by-play man. Was on the call Wednesday night for Purdue and Ohio State. He was in the booth alongside Seth Davis and John Crispin, and we talked to Mr. Kugler about the Purdue-Ohio State game. We talked about Nebraska basketball because Kevin is from Nebraska, went to Nebraska, and has some insight there. Talked a little bit of Nebraska football as well with signing day just the other day, and Scott Frost mania still in full effect in Lincoln, Nebraska. And overall, it was just a great discussion with Mr. Kugler. He's actually a recurring guest on the show. I had him on our second overall episode of the Take 10 podcast. So I figured this would be a good time to bring him back and talk a wide variety of topics. So this is the All Kevin episode of the Take 10 podcast, and both guys were great. So we'll get to those interviews in just a moment. First, I want to give a couple of reminders before we get into those discussions. First one is please continue to download the episodes. Please subscribe if you haven't already to make it easier to download those. You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, or Podbean. So if you're listening on SoundCloud right now, head on over to those podcasting platforms and subscribe. You can also like, rate, or leave a review on the podcast if you enjoy what you hear. Second reminder that we do have a coupon code active on the btn.com online store. So if you want to do some online shopping for some Big Ten merch, Big Ten swag, head on over to the btn.com online store and use the coupon code TAKE10, that's TAKE, all caps, number 1 and 0, for 10% off your order at the btn.com online store. Once again, that's TAKE10. All right, with those out of the way, it's time to get to our first Kevin interview. It's Kevin Kiermaier of the Tampa Bay Rays, and he's also a Purdue Superfan. Gives some great thoughts, so stay tuned. It's BTN's interview with Kevin Kiermaier. very pleased to be joined by Tampa Bay Rays center fielder, two-time Gold Glove winner, and Purdue Boilermaker superfan, Kevin Kiermaier. Kevin, what's up, man? How you doing this evening?
I'm doing okay. My Boilers had a tough loss tonight, but you know what? Can't dwell on it. Life goes on. Big game at Michigan State on Saturday, so we'll just see what these boys are about and if they can rebound after a tough loss. But other than that, the tough loss tonight, I'm doing really well. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, Kevin, I got to say you were an awesome sport coming on still. Less than an hour after Ohio State went in and stunned Purdue in what really was the most significant Big Ten game to date so far. So, Kevin, as a Purdue fan, just give me your quick kind of visceral reaction here to what you saw tonight while that wound is still fresh.
Well, it was a sloppy game both ways, if you ask me. And, the first 5 to 8 minutes was really hard to watch. A lot of turnovers. Teams are just, throwing up bricks left and right. And, Purdue made a couple runs and Ohio State came right back. But, the big thing that sticks out to me is in the second half when Purdue made a great run and got to lead up to 14 with 9 minutes to go. And then, as Andy Katz and Robbie Hummel pointed out after the game when I was listening, Ohio State chose to go a smaller lineup, and then that's how they made their run. And, man, we couldn't rebound, and they flat out outplayed us the last 10 minutes of the game. And it really, really hurts because I've seen Purdue do that before where they've blown huge leads like that. And at home when they're so good at Mackey, such a statement game versus such a good Ohio State team. But you have to credit Ohio State for staying in it. A lot of these teams in the league this year, especially in the Big Ten, if you're down 14, you see everything just unwind and 14 turns into 20 or so. And, They kept at it, and they played great, but that was a tough loss for us Boilermaker fans, and that place was rocking all night tonight. It would have been great to get another win, but life goes on.
Yeah, really well said, and the place was rocking, and Ohio State really brought their A game at the end. But, I mean, you got to step back, I think, and just appreciate as well what Purdue's been able to do. Yeah, that loss sucked if you're a Purdue fan, but what they've done this year has been remarkable, and everything is still in front of them. So I'm just curious to get your thoughts on, where you go from here. I know they got a big game against Michigan State, like you said, coming up, and you got to think all their goals are still very achievable in front of them, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. That there's still a lot to do with the next 3 weeks of conference play, then go in the Big Ten tournament, then into March Madness. Watching these guys, this whole year, they've been so good. I've had a couple close games and, pulled off some big road wins, but that's the thing about this team where, it kind of makes me scratch my head. We're so good at Mackey, but on the road, you never know what team is going to show up. And, the Big Ten, I think it's a down conference. I think it's safe to say it's a down year for the conference other than Ohio State. Michigan's done okay, Michigan State, Purdue, but other than that, it's just kind of a toss-up. You see teams like Wisconsin who are really struggling this year. It's kind of a different feel, and I don't think the conference is as strong. But I say all that because, Purdue, when it really becomes tournament time, you're never playing at home. And, the defense lately has been a little bit disappointing, but the rebounding, they have to improve. And, they rely so much on Isaac Haas. He has to come and play every night, and that's a lot of pressure to put on one player. And I know they have so many other good players, but they played Rutgers the other day, and they won by a few points. And I think Isaac Haas, he had 5 or 6 points, and everything goes through him. Once he starts going and they double team, he can kick it out to Carson Edwards, Dakota Mathias, Vince Edwards, PJ Thompson. But it all goes through him. So if he plays good, Purdue gives themselves a really good chance. But it just all depends on, what Purdue team are we going to get each and every night. And they've done so great this year. But, especially Big Ten tournament and during March, it always scares me because I just know how they are on a neutral court or away. But, that's the case for everyone. That's the beautiful thing about that. But, man, it's exciting, though. I'm so excited to see what this team's done. I've been proud of them all year. And, I live and die through every game. So it's an absolute rush watching these guys. And I'm going to ride or die with them no matter what.
Yeah, you clearly know your Purdue hoops. And in your Twitter bio, you put second only to the center field for the Rays description. You say Purdue Boilermakers #1 fan. So how did this fandom come about? Like, get me into the entire history of kind of how you grew into such a passionate Purdue basketball and sports fan.
Well, it all started with my childhood, and my dad and my grandpa, they grew up Purdue fans, so I wanted to follow their footsteps. So I like Purdue. My mom she's a big Indiana Notre Dame fan, and that pains me to say that because I love that woman so much.
That's tough.
She's so misguided with her sports, and I'm a true Purdue fan. I dislike those other two universities with an absolute passion. I really do. I don't mind Notre Dame basketball that much, but Notre Dame football and then IU basketball, football, I could care less if they ever won a game in the history of their programs. But like I said, I'm a true fan, and I mean that when I say that. But going back to me being a Purdue fan, as you get older, you kind of learn more and whatnot. But really what started, Purdue basketball wasn't anything after Glenn Robinson left in the 94. He was there 93, 94 when he was National Player of the Year, all that. And then there was a long stretch of, Purdue being bad or mediocre. And then Chris Kramer, Robbie Hummel, Juwan Johnson, E'Twaun Moore, they just changed the culture of that team. And I was old enough to really start being able to engage in those games and kind of know who the guys were and, know a little bit more about basketball as I got older. And, ever since those guys made those runs for those 3 or 4 years, I've been hooked ever since. And it was the same way with Purdue football when Drew Brees was there and, through the years after that when Kyle Orton and Curtis Painter were there, always glued to the TV on Saturdays. But, as time has gone on, man, I'd never miss a game, and I think it's going to be like that forever. And, this is such a fun year to be a part of, and I know we have 4 really quality seniors that we're going to lose next year, but like I said, I've mentally told myself, and, I'm a Purdue fan till the day I die, and I'll be this crazy about them forever.
Yeah, so you, that's in your blood. You're a Fort Wayne native, correct?
I am.
All right, so you could have gone to Purdue to play baseball after you had a stop at Parkland College in Champaign, and ended up choosing the Rays instead when they drafted you. So what went into that decision? Was that tough for you being a Purdue fan?
It was really tough. I'm going to do a long story short here. I got drafted in the 31st round out of Parkland my sophomore year, and I had a scholarship to go to Purdue that next year, which would have been my junior year. And, I wasn't expecting to go in the 31st round. I thought I was going to go anywhere through 5th to 8th round. And, for guys like me, you kind of depend on a signing bonus to live off of because, you never know if you're going to be in the minors for 2 years or 8 years. So being the 31st round, I thought for sure I was going to go to Purdue. And, it got to the point where we agreed to a certain amount, and it wasn't anything crazy, but I knew that I was just ready to go play. And it really hurt to forego a Purdue scholarship. I always wanted to be a part of that university somehow. And, I never stepped foot on campus as a student there. I've been there many a times, but I knew it was the youngest I'll ever be at that point. And, age is a huge factor in baseball. And I was just ready to go. So I signed with the Rays in 2010, and to be honest, it was the best decision I ever made. And a lot of me still thinks, what would have happened if I would have went Purdue, this or that? Would I, land with a different team a year or two later? Who knows? But I guess I can't sit here and dwell on that. I'm very happy with what's happened with my career, and I believe everything happens for a reason. So I'm very happy where I am today, but I always wish – I claim Purdue so much, Purdue this, Purdue that, but I never actually went there. So that part kind of hurts my morale a little bit, but whatever.
Hey, I mean, you can't argue with the results. I mean, 2-time Gold Glover, you're in the majors, just signed a big contract extension before last season. And you mentioned your draft pick, where you were picked in the draft, 941st overall in the late rounds, and obviously you felt slept on thinking you were going to go in a higher round. So with that mentality, I mean, not that Purdue fans carry such a heavy underdog mentality, but I do feel like kind of seeing all the social media reaction that we get from fans, that there is a kind of a chip on their shoulder for Purdue fans. And do you kind of feel like that chip on your shoulder is similar, the one you carried that drove you to the major leagues? Is that kind of similar in your fandom for Purdue, or am I just off in assuming that?
You know what? It is, because even after, all, like, just talking about Purdue basketball this year, all they've done this year, 3 losses now, up until this point, they never really get talked about. And you see how much, the Dukes and North Carolinas and Kentucky's, all these teams, Michigan State's, they're going to get talked about every year no matter what. And, Purdue's always been under the radar type of university as far as certain things like that go. There's been some really good individual performers throughout the years. I mentioned Glenn Robinson, Drew Brees, Robbie Hummel, Etuan Moore, guys like that. But for the most part, collectively as different teams throughout the years, you haven't brought home a championship or anything like that. A couple of Big Ten conference championships here or there, but it's going to be like that for probably quite a while. And I've always been a low-key, under-the-radar type guy my whole life, and I always use that as a chip on my shoulder. I don't care about my contract. I mean, I'm very grateful for my contract, but I always told people when I got that last year, I'm still going to go play the same way I did when I was in high school, junior college, minor leagues. I'm never changing anything. I always have something to prove to someone. And like I said, I guess, Purdue can relate to that too, whether, we're talking about the university itself or the athletics, whatever. It's a place that doesn't get a whole lot of recognition, but, for guys like me, that's right where I want to be, because I know I can do damage out there on a baseball field, and you better not sleep on me, just like you better not sleep on the Purdue Boilermakers, because they'll bite you in the butt, and they'll, go pull off a lot of W's if you count them out. So, yeah, I guess we can both relate to each other with, kind of the same similarities.
Yeah, it's not only that. It's like the whole defensive mentality. You've gotten accolades for your defense. Purdue, they showed that Purdue intro video tonight on BTN, and I've always loved watching that because they have the whole defense lives here mentality. Our house, like protect our house. I feel like that defensive kind of, grinding mentality is exactly kind of how you play baseball.
It is, and defense will always be my bread and butter. That's what got me called up to the big leagues when I first broke through in the 2013 playoffs. And it's so random for someone like me to, with no big league time, and for me to get called up at such a crucial time. I'm out there making my debut out there, but it matters, baseball, there's so many, it's a two-side game. You play offense, defense, just like basketball. And there's a lot of other variables that come into play. But, it's just going out there, being that scrappy, just a bunch of gamers out there, not afraid to get bloody or, scuff an elbow or a knee up diving for a ball. And that's the way Purdue's been for as long as I can remember. And it starts from those, like I said, Chris Kramer days of him being, back there and really setting the tone. And, that's what kind of Matt Painter expects out of his guys. And it's a beautiful thing. Defense matters, and it does win championships. So I need my Bullers to step it up just a little bit, though, on that side of the ball right now, because, like I said, they've been lacking a little bit lately, but, we all hit our, slumps and strides every now and then. But I'd like to see them rebound a little bit better and, get a few more stops in critical situations.
All right, so take me through it. Obviously, baseball, it's the off season when Purdue basketball season's going on, so it fits well into your schedule. What's like a game day ritual like? Like, where do you spend your off season? Where are you watching, and how are you consuming these games?
I live in Tampa, Florida now. I've lived down here for the past 4 years, and I always know when Purdue is playing. I never miss it. I just got recently married this past November, and my wife loves my love for Purdue, but she hates how much I want to watch and invest my time. And I love college basketball in general. It's not just Purdue. I mean, they're my team, but I watch basketball pretty much every day of the week, and it just never gets old to me. I love watching good competitive games. And so for me, I wake up, I go work out every day, and then I'll go practice with University of Tampa from usually 2:30 to 5 o'clock. Then I come back, get a little bit of light dinner, and then I'm glued to that TV from 7 o'clock to 11 o'clock, pretty much every day. I'm pretty boring. I don't do a whole lot. I try letting my body rest as much as I can, but I love sitting on my beautiful, comfy couch watching some college b-ball. That's what makes me happy, and it's one of my passions for sure.
All right, so I got to ask, with your connection to Purdue, have you ever done anything like in an official capacity with them? Have they like welcomed you, into the layup line like Drake style, or is that something that'll have to wait for the future?
Yeah, I don't know. The layup line hasn't happened yet. I think I know my role, so I'm not going to try to cross any lines. But a couple years ago, they invited me and my brother and two of my other best friends, and they gave us like an all-access tour. Brian Cardinal, one of the all-time Purdue greats, was actually the one showing us around. He showed us around the weight room, practice facility, showed us around Mackey, let us watch the team do a shoot-around. And then I went and played horse against my brother and both my buddies, and I was just making it rain the whole day. I'm from Indiana, so I always say shooter's gonna shoot.
You had the milk carton or whatever, the hoop in the barn in the backyard. That's like the stereotype, right?
Hey, we had a hoop my whole life in our driveway, and I've always been very fond of my jump shot, and I think Brian Cardinal can vouch for that as well. I was hitting a lot of shots that day, and still to this day, before all my workouts, I go shoot free throws, I dribble around, do all these crossovers when I'm just playing in front of my imaginary defender, and I shoot about 50 to 100 threes a day for the most part, and I absolutely love it. Basketball was my first love, and as I got older, I realized that dream quickly faded. But back to the story about Purdue, they